ask the questions for the panelists as well. So take notes and come ready. But I think to really kick things off here, I'm going to raise a question that does cause some debate here. So you guys are not prepared for this. So I'm going to see how y'all answer. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We have, how about you guys? Does pineapple belong? Yes. Everyone. No. Hard no. Well, you know what? I love Spinato so much that the sauce will overpower anything. So I cannot wait to try the pineapple pizza over there. But I used to be a hard no. So y'all have more experience than I do. But today is obviously about learning so much more and diving into the food industry. Raise your hand if you are a entrepreneur or have a restaurant or some type of space right now, or if you're hoping to in the food industry. Raise them high, raise them high. Awesome. We're hoping that this conversation just continues to help fuel your mission, your dreams and desires in an industry that we all know is not easy. Why we're calling this today, I'm going to say thriving and surviving. So first off, we have obviously your names, your bios, but could you each go into a little bit more of what you do and what sparked where you are today? Want to start?
All right, I'll start. My name's Katie. I'm obviously the COO here at Spinato's, but it's been a little bit of a long journey for me to get here today. There you go, sorry. I actually started with the Spinato's family 13 years ago as a consultant, really. They hired me to come in and help them out from an HR standpoint. If you can believe it, they at that point had been around 35 plus years and no HR policies, procedures, right, all that fun stuff. So I got that job to come in and help set them up. Obviously fell in love with the family, what they stood for, who they are. And so when I sat them down and said, hey, you know, it might be time to hire somebody full-time to take this on, they approached me and, you know, long story short, here I am. But held that HR role for probably close to 10 years. And then over the last 3 or so is when they asked me to kind of step into that COO role as we've grown to who we are. So in a very brief history there of how I came to be in my position now. So.
Hi. Hard for me to answer that because I was invited onto this panel for a position that I had about 4 years ago, which was the chef and founder of a restaurant here in Tempe. And that was the privilege of a lifetime. I would say that how I found that role was essentially when my uncle asked me what I planned to do with my life. I was getting my degree in biochemistry at the time. I didn't say become a biochemist. I said that I wanted to start a restaurant. And for whatever reason, hopefully we can get into it later, he took me seriously. And that very simple answer propelled me on a journey that now brings me to this stage, where 4 years after I closed my restaurant, I'm very privileged to be a part of this panel. I thank State 48 Foundation and for Spinato's for giving me a platform to continue to share. And I guess here I now am in this role of more educating, of developing the chef industry, of trying to create opportunity for others and see what that looks like in a very dynamic landscape, especially given the challenges of economy and scarcity and rent and all of that we face right now. So yeah, for the last 4 years, I have put my efforts into community building, food advocacy, creating sustainable food systems, and amplifying the power of food in general. So yeah, I guess that's a two-step process for me.
I love it.
Hi, my name is Brent Imbranoni, and I'm the founder of Brent Box. We're a local meal prep company that I started in 2020, 5 years ago, just selling meal prep out of my house because healthy eating and healthy food was something that I was passionate about. I went through a bit of a personal transformation lost a whole bunch of weight thanks to healthy eating and meal prepping, and started to feel better and look better, and it was kind of life-changing for me. So I wanted to share these recipes and share this healthy food with as many people as possible. So it started small out of my apartment while working a 9 to 5. Did that for about a year, moved into our first shared commercial kitchen space in 2021. That was an 1,100 square foot spot in Ahwatukee. We were out there for 3 years while we just kind of continued to grow. I was able to quit my 9 to 5 in 2022 and kind of do the meal prep business full time. So it's been a learning experience, to say the least. I mean, I don't have a background in business. I don't have a culinary degree. I've just been kind of figuring things out as I go, build the plane as it's flying, so to speak. And last year in 2024, we moved out of that 1,100 square foot shared commercial kitchen and found a kitchen space of our own, a 4,000 square foot production facility in downtown Phoenix. So that change has also came with its own new obstacles and challenges and things to navigate. Running a kitchen is a lot different than renting time and space at one. So that has been a learning experience for me. So I'm still fairly new in the food business, 4 years in. And I also, I don't own a restaurant, never have. So feel a little underqualified to be here. But if there's one thing I know, it is that don't let feeling underqualified stop you from doing something. So yeah, I'm here and I'm happy to be here, and thank you to the State 48 Foundation and Spinatos. I was a 2022 State 48 Foundation grant winner. The foundation has been instrumental for me in my entrepreneurial journey. Like I said, having that imposter syndrome, not really having a background in business, not really knowing a lot of business owners. The foundation has given me a space where I can be around like-minded people and meet and talk to other entrepreneurs and other business owners in all different fields, because we all kind of go through the same stuff. So the foundation has been a big resource for me for networking, connecting with others, as well as the education. I'm just every speaker series event in August. I've been going to them since 2022. Each week is a different topic, and you learn from different speakers on different things. And I've just tried to be a sponge and learn as much as I can about business and connect with others, and obviously take them up on their resources and their grant funding. So yeah, that's me. Yeah.
I love it. Well, as you can see here, all three have different perspectives, come from different backgrounds, and truly doing different things in the industry. But let's get real and raw real quick, because there's chuckles here. They're nervous after my pineapple question. Well, for you guys, looking at the restaurant or the food industry, all of it combined, it's not an easy industry to be in. There's a certain type of resilience needed to endure the ups and downs. That's obviously entrepreneurship in general, but something a little different. You have to have a different trait in you to sustain. If you were to look back before starting your journey, what, if you could pinpoint, was one thing that was stopping you initially? Like, is this a good idea? Is this a good idea to start this out of my house right now in the pandemic? Is this a good idea to start this restaurant? So if you guys could take us back to those initial fear-based, truly, mentalities that happen before you start something big like this.
I mean, for myself, I am a first-generation immigrant. My parents and I moved here when I was quite small. And they came here at a time where there were very particular degrees that the United States was looking for. They wanted doctoral degrees in engineering and science and healthcare, and that's what brought my father here. So my parents had a very clear vision of what success in the United States looked like. And that's probably why I went into biochemistry. But me saying that I wanted to be a chef was just beyond their imagination and mine. I had no idea how to do it. I didn't know what it meant to work in a restaurant. I didn't have a car. I was going to school full time. And I just didn't understand the industry. So that was definitely a very large fear. And when you were talking about imposter syndrome, it's very difficult to be the first in your family to try something. because everybody around you is quite scared, right? They're afraid for the leap you're going to have to take, whether that's a leap of faith or a leap of, changing your career, any of that. It's very challenging. So I did something that I think I have always been data driven. So I had to prove to myself that I had the tenacity to seek the information that I needed. So I had a map in my bedroom, and I had marked on it all of the different coffee shops and juice bars that had been open for at least 5 years. And I chose 5 years because most leases, anybody who's looking for a space, are 3 to 5 years in a renewal. So I wanted to make sure that they had stuck around through at least one lease cycle, and they had a business model that made sense. And every day I had a boatload of homework. So when I was done with my classes, I would take the bus to one of those locations, and I would sit there and I would write down how many people came in and about what did they order. And I would start gathering the market research that I needed to prove to myself that this was possible. So after I'd done that for enough time, I would research the actual zip code and the location that I was looking at. I would look at what the average income was in that area. How much were people on average spending? About how many people were coming in? I would extrapolate that across. And I finally got to a point where when my uncle asked me, what are you planning on doing with your life? And I said, I might open a juice bar, which was the hardest thing for me to say out loud. I had all of this data to show him that I had taken it seriously. And because I took it seriously, he took me seriously. So I would say that's how I, approached it, is I couldn't afford market research, so I couldn't prove my dream to be true. I couldn't buy the proof. But I did have the tenacity to find it. It took me 3 years to do that. And after that 3rd year, I somehow convinced my family to go along with me.
I have to hear before you hand over. So interesting. You did use your degree. Come to find out, I don't know how many people would stick through all of that, but that's amazing. What was their reaction beyond your uncle knowing part of your dream, your parents, as they are thinking? I mean, that's every college student. We change our degree. We're trying to figure it out, but you literally going from biochemist to a chef.
I think my uncle was a dreamer. He was a gastroenterologist, and when he realized that he had done enough in that field, he decided to become an entrepreneur himself. And so he was always hungry to spark this in others. And when he saw that I had a little bit of that, he lended me his support. So my cousin came to me the day after my uncle's son, and he said, well, if you're serious about this, I'll quit my job and I'll help you write a business plan. And I said, I'm serious about this. And he quit his job and he moved to Arizona with me. And for the next year, we wrote a business plan, which is why whenever people ask me how long did 24 Carats run, I always say 14 to 15 years, because that's when I started working on it. If I'm really being truthful, it's an 18-year project in my mind, because it took me that long to bring it to life and to set it free. So in that time, I wrote a business plan. I extrapolated. I took the principles that I was hunting for, and I took my cousin's business degree and applied some structure to it, developed it out, and I took it back to my uncle. And he told me to pitch it to the family and see if I could get any kind of angel investors. I didn't get a lot, but I got enough to be able to sign my first lease. And about 6 weeks after I signed my first lease, my mom said, so you're serious about this, right? And I said, yeah, it's not a hobby. I will say this, though. Imposter syndrome is very difficult to extinguish inside of you, especially when you're trying something brand new. Yeah. It is easier for others to extinguish in themselves when they see you be successful, when they see you hit those first markers of success, when they start to recognize that you can leave your job and dedicate full time to this. All of a sudden, you'll get these cheerleaders that at first needed a moment to convince themselves. And the louder and louder that cheer section gets, the easier and easier it is for you to believe that you can continue to do it. So I hope that answers.
No, it does. Yeah, so good. And Brett, what about for you, starting in your apartment, still in your 9 to 5, and looking around thinking, am I going to do this?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of fears. Will this work? Is this something that people need? Is there a market out there? Is there enough room in the space for me? Because, meal prep and home deliveries, like that already kind of existed and there was plenty of people doing it. So, the fear was like, well, will this be successful enough to where I can quit my job and do this full time? Because that was the goal. But it actually took me a year from moving into that first shared commercial kitchen where I was working the 9 to 5 in logistics and then working all weekend at the kitchen doing meal prep. It took a year to where I was finally comfortable enough to say, okay, I'm making X amount of dollars doing this meal prep side hustle business, and which is about the same as what I was making at this 9 to 5. So like it took me a year to slowly, and during that time I was scaling back my hours at the 9 to 5, knowing that I wanted to pursue this meal prep business, but I just wasn't sure if it was sustainable at that time. So it was definitely scary to finally, eventually walk away from that safety net and that salary and those benefits and be like, okay, now I'm all in. Now there's no choice but to make this succeed, because now, my livelihood depends on it. There's nothing else keeping me floating here. So it was definitely scary. And then, also just not knowing if it would succeed, if there was, room for me in the space. But what I've found is you just have to carve out your own room in whatever space you're looking to be in. There's always room for you. There's always more fish in the sea, more potential customers, more people that want access to healthy, convenient, affordable, fresh food. But it did take a while to validate that and to feel that, yeah, I can do this, I can make a living doing it, and there's room for me in this space. So yeah, there's always been fears. Every step of the way, there's just a new fear or a new challenge, new obstacle. But you just have to face those fears head on and know why you're doing it, and keep that in mind, the impact that you're making, and just keep pushing forward, just take those fears and just bury them. just keep it moving, that's all I could say.
We'll have to talk more about that. So much there. Katie, for Spinato, just looking at obviously the longevity that they've had, 50 years. When you look at each stop, obviously you've been a part of 13 of those, but he's talking about, is there space? Well, there's tons of pizza places, there's tons of options, really creating an identity and a culture that is Spinato's, and being able to scale the way that they have and still stay so rooted in who they are.
Yeah, I think back to when Ken Spinato came to Arizona with, I believe it was just Nicole at the time. Anthony was yet to be born. So moved his family from Chicago here, and he tells this story, right, where he opened his first day and sold 69 cents, right? So he didn't even sell a pizza, sold one soda, I think for 65 cents, add tax to that. And so I've asked him, sat down, right, with Ken, because I can't imagine putting my whole family, right, across the country, open up this business, put all that into it, and then, not have a very successful day. So I asked him, I go, how did you even get up the next day and want to keep going? And he's always just said, he goes, I believed in the product. I believed in what I was doing. And so when I think of how you overcome those fears, is Ken Spinato really kind of defines that grit, I think, that you need to overcome that. Because I think no matter what you do, opening your own business or just in life, right, you're going to come to those blocks, and we've experienced them throughout 50 years in the company, and so it was a very slow growth, right? Family is one of our core values, and so we are very particular in how we protect that, and even in who we hire, what we choose to do, and I think that's how it's gotten us to 51 years in a very short way to say that. Yeah. There's lots there, but
I love that, the thought of, yes, making, you said 60 some cents.
69 cents, yeah.
What did he sell, a ranch?
I think it was a Pepsi.
Okay, a Pepsi. But then you think about, especially in this industry, and just beyond the restaurant, but the instant gratification, like people need that instant success that, you know, there's tons of get rich fast and it's sexy to be an entrepreneur, but that long journey. Can you just each speak about, you know, going through and did you have that mentality of like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to make me tons of money? Or was it like, okay, I need to sit back and realize like it's going to be a while until I start seeing maybe being in the green, or being able to scale to employees? Did you guys have that moment of, okay, wait, it's going to take a minute?
Yes, I had it twice. So when I first opened, I was in a 1,300 square foot space, and it took me close to 5 years to break even. It was very challenging. So I'll first speak to breaking even. That is, in and of itself, one of the biggest challenges. The second time I did it, we expanded to a 3,800 square foot space, and I broke even in 9 months. And what that means is that you will learn to be faster. You will learn the speed that you need to attain success. And I know that sounds really daunting when you don't even know what that success looks like, but the truth is that when you start, you have to trust yourself. That's the very first thing you're gonna do. And you know, there's this saying that people will say, which I've always disagreed with, and I think it's since been amended, where they say, you know, if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That is absolutely false. And I think it was amended to say that you will work harder than you would ever work at any other job, and that is absolutely true. But the truth is that for a lot of entrepreneurs, we start with passion, right? We start with the seed of this is what we were born to do. This is what we have to offer the world. This is the puzzle piece that is missing that I alone know how to fill. And that's true. That's what gets you to start. That's what gets you on the bus to go sit in a coffee shop when you have only $5 to spend and you're gonna somehow drag it on for 6 hours to try to collect the data that you need. That's the spark. But that is not what keeps you going. Tenacity is what keeps you going. At some point, it will turn into work. At some point, it turns into dedication, and at some point, it turns into discipline. And that discipline is really the acquisition of what you need to learn and how quickly you are able to turn it into an actionable item. And you will get better and better and better at that. But like anything else, it is a yoga. It is a practice. It is something you have to do every single day. You will live, breathe, and you know, as you said, we believe that success is fast. You know, we hear these stories about social media entrepreneurs that started posting about, you know, what I wear in a day, and all of a sudden now they're making $3 million a year. But we forget the tenacity of waking up every day, filming yourself every day, taking time to edit those videos, taking time to post those videos, being largely unsuccessful for years, but still believing and still having the discipline to continue to do it. It is very easy for people to look at somebody who is successful and say that is unattainable. But when you start to look at the journey and the path that took them from here, from where you are to where you hope to be, it is always the same. It's always the same. It's just one foot in front of the other, and you don't stop until you get there. So I feel like hopefully that's helpful.
So for me personally, like I said, my business, a meal prep business, is a little bit different than a restaurant. I didn't have that big, huge initial upfront cost like a restaurant does. I know a lot of restaurateurs, you know, you need a building. I mean, look at how beautiful this space is. How much do you think it costs to build? A lot, you know. So a lot of times, you know, I feel like in the restaurant industry, it requires a lot of cash up front to start building your dream and building the restaurant. But for me, you know, I just started selling meals. And then I just moved to a kitchen where I could rent time and space to make more meals to sell. And then we needed a bigger kitchen, so I needed to, you know, sign a 4-year deal on a 4,000 square foot space to do even more. So I've luckily been in the green the entire time, but that's not to say I've been rolling in the dough, so to speak. I think the first year in business, we did like $100,000 in sales. And for a restaurant, that's like, you wouldn't ever survive. But then our second year we did 250, and our third year we did 450, and then last year We did about 650, and this year we're on pace to do close to 900. I mean, the goal is to do $1 million a year of revenue, but it's taken almost 5 years to get to that point. So it's been it's all been bootstrapped. So like I said, I haven't needed to take loans or borrow money, but it's been a very slow process. And a lot of times, a lot of that money that we make is reinvested back into the business. I mean, that's kind of how I've been operating from the beginning is, we make some money, I pay myself enough to live, and then a lot of the additional money just goes back into the business to reinvest so we can grow and set ourselves up for the best future that we can. So, you see on social media, entrepreneurship is, you're going to be rich overnight. For me, it hasn't been the case, unfortunately. Maybe one day, but for now, I think just like a slow and steady organic growth rate for me has just been just fine, especially too in a business where like we have to physically produce every single meal we sell. I mean, right now we're selling about 1,600 meals a week, and each one where, my team is hands-on creating that meal. So it's a lot of work. It's a labor of love, and when you grow slowly and organically, it's also sustainable because you're not overwhelming the system. You're not biting off more than you can chew. You're kind of taking small steps year over year to get to where you want to go. And then to get to where I want to go next, I'll figure out how to get there. It's going to require more. Everything is just, each year is more. So you just got to keep figuring out the more. While remaining as profitable as you can. But yeah, it's been a slow journey, and people should know that. Because like you said, people see on social media, it's just like overnight you're rich and you started a business, good for you, but it's really, it's tough and it's slow. But I feel like I've been really lucky, and I'm happy to be where I'm at, and there's a long road ahead, but be ready for it.
Yeah, and you started in 2020, which came with its own challenges in the food industry. We could probably get back to you on that, but you guys, they're like, don't talk about it.
PTSD.
Where's the wine? We need the wine to think back to 2020. But could you guys just speak on how you guys effectively embrace those challenges as so much was unknown? I just remember at that time leaning a lot on like the no-touch delivery, running away from the delivery man, but you guys had so much behind the scenes that you had to work out. Whoever wants to
go
start.
for it. Yeah, we try not to talk about those times.
I'm sorry.
I think part of our big success during that time, one, we obviously had a built-in delivery system, so we were already kind of pre-set up for that, how that was moving forward. But really it was having a team that you can kind of take, it literally changed every day from what I remember, between different regulations and guidelines, and then coming back to now you have to close, right, your restaurant. Then even when you opened, you could only open up 50% of it. And so it felt like years and years, probably was, but at least a couple of years, right, where just every day it felt like something was changing. And so we were fortunate enough to have a great team behind us that, right, you became adaptable and willing to adapt just to make whatever it could work.
That was already embedded in Spinato's played a big part in embracing so much unknown, so many pivots.
I think that's who we are. We have 4 core values here at Spinato's. Family is one, community is the second one, commitment to personal growth, and then kindness are our 4 core values. And so I tell people when they come to join us, if you don't like any of those things, you're not going to enjoy your time here at Spinato's, because everything we do derives from that. So we call that is the how do we behave an organization. And so every decision that we make, right, has to align with those core values. And so family is obviously one of them. And so I was talking earlier about this, but our big thing is our guest experience is never going to exceed our employee experience. And so a lot of our decisions that we make are for that. How can we make our employee experience that much better? Because they're going to give back to our guests, who then return, right? And ultimately, we tell them the guests are who pays the bills, right? Puts the shoes on their feet, our feet. I always say, Carrie, our payroll person, I was like, she doesn't pay your bills, right? The guest that comes in pays your bills. And so how we treat them and give them that experience to return is really how we've been successful through this. So treat your employees right, do the right thing by them, and they will give back and do the right thing to our guests. And then, it's just that full circle that goes back around.
Yeah. And Sasha, for you, what challenges did you have to embrace, either financially or just operationally?
So I think I still remember, if I can take you guys back, I still remember the Friday before the lockdown happened, and I didn't believe it was going to happen. Like everybody else, people were asking me, like, oh, are you going to close down? And I was like, really? Like, what are we doing? Like, do we have to close down? And then that Sunday, I believed it. And we close early on Sundays, or at that time, we closed early on Sundays after brunch, and we opened again on Tuesday. So I took one extra day. I said, we're going to open on a Wednesday. And I sat down with my husband, who luckily has a skill set that complements mine. He's a computer scientist, so that was very helpful. I feel like almost every family needs one at this point, so that was very, very helpful. And we sat on the couch from Sunday night until Tuesday evening, and we built an online ordering system for ourselves. We migrated almost all aspects of our business to being able to be digitized. We did this for a few reasons. We had members of our team that would not have been supported if we had closed, so they would not have received federal assistance. And we had this idea that we were in it together. I feel like the pandemic and that era was the application of everything that I had stumbled and tried to learn and grasp for all of the years before. Those last 2 years were probably the test that I had been studying for forever. And I'll say this in a few ways. One, it is a marketing jigsaw puzzle. I feel like you cannot figure out, all of a sudden people can't come into your brick and mortar. Like I said, it was 3,800 square feet. I was still paying rent on that. I carried all of my employees. But we did a few things that I think were really key. We had always invested in our community. We had always taken time to understand the needs of the people around us, and what I call them as stakeholders, right? You have investors, and then you have stakeholders. You have people who go out of their way to make sure that you have success, and every single one of you who is an entrepreneur will find who those stakeholders are. There are people who will come up to you and say, I can't believe I can't believe I never found you before. I can't believe this is the first time I'm here. I can't believe you're the puzzle piece of my life. And I can't believe that you're going through a hard time. I will be there for you. So the pandemic, one, required that we completely change our business model. Two, it required that we do not leave our stakeholders behind. So not only was it our employees, but it was our team members. The way 24 Carats did that was we partnered with a nonprofit organization to serve as our fiduciary partner and to accept crowdsourced funds. We raised about somewhere in the order of about $14,000 in that situation. And then we applied for our PPP loan. We received about $55,000 in the PPP loan. And I created this program that I called Carrot Cares. So for all of the nonprofits that we had been supporting for the 11 years up until this point, they had suddenly lost their volunteer base. Not only did they lose their volunteer base, but people weren't dropping off groceries or toilet paper or canned goods. A lot of that just went to the wayside. So I put together this program, and then I invited every single one of them that we had been supporting for the years past to apply and tell us what their needs were. So that was very helpful, because not only did they tell us what they needed, but it reinforced that we could still continue to give to our community, though we weren't entirely sure how. The second thing that I felt like carried us was that we had hired a PR team well before the pandemic had happened. And for anybody who is starting their entrepreneurship journey, it is not the way to go, I will say, to sit back and wait for somebody to discover you. You have to meet them where they are at. And a good professional can help that. Luckily, it was a friend of mine, and she was very considerate with her rate with us. And I remember when she called me, she said, almost all of my customers are, too scared to continue with this investment. And I remember walking and pacing in my backyard, and I said, you know what, I'm in it. I'm in it if you're in it. I think you're valuable, and I'm going to continue to invest in you. So all of this work we were doing in the community gave her things to amplify about us. And the more she amplified about us, the more our community came out to support, because they were all feeling the same way we did, helpless. And we gave them an opportunity to participate in our vision of what this could actually look like. The third point is very much like what Katie was saying. We wanted to protect our team members. So we created systems that we could preserve as best as we could, their livelihood, preserve their mental health, make sure that they felt supported. We had maternity programs, through childcare programs throughout the pandemic. And what that did, what I'm very proud of, is that we went through the pandemic with not one person getting sick on our team. We didn't close for one extra day that we didn't need to. And because our customers were so invested in our success, we ended our tenure at 24 Carats meeting 95% of our target revenue pre-pandemic. Wow. So we did not lose a monetary value of our company, because when you reach out to people, like I said, they will reach back. There are enough people out there, like Brent said, who you are that missing piece of their life. You make their life easier, and you make their life better. They see you as integral. And when you receive them and you meet them with that same energy, it is almost like a life vest that you never knew existed. So I would encourage everyone, we never know when that next large catastrophe or challenge is going to hit, but invest in the people around you, whether or not they're your teammates, whether they're your community, whether they're nonprofits that you don't ever think will show up for you, but they do. And the last thing I'll say is that find a way to continue to make things profitable. And I don't mean profitable in the sense that you are lining your pockets with money. The reason that our PPP and crowdsourcing program worked is because at no point did I ask anyone on my team or in the nonprofit organizations that we were supporting to subsidize the work that we were doing. Everybody got paid for every single hour that they worked. Every vendor, small farmer, grocery store, artisan got paid for every single thing we purchased. We did not ask anybody to donate their time at a time when they were so fragmented and having a hard time themselves. So it can be done, but like I said, it took me 11 years to realize that it could be done. So
yeah, I think that just shows how important community and cultivating that community around your business, your idea, your restaurant, your startup is. And I know you started in 2020, so it's kind of like that was your norm. What kind of challenges did you face maybe post that era, if any at all, or did you see yourself maybe growing that community in a different way post 2020?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just getting started during the pandemic, so there wasn't really any additional challenges for me personally as regards to that. I mean, people were ordering more food for home delivery, so it kind of worked to my advantage. Like, you know, our drivers will wear masks and we'll leave it at your door. We don't have to be close to you, and you know, and that was really early on. So, you know, we didn't really have a lot to have to navigate as far as the pandemic goes, luckily. But sounds like you pivoted you guys both pivoted beautifully. So
Well, you thrived in that environment. You still saw
Yeah, so
continuous
thriving in a
growth.
business during the pandemic also seems like an oxymoron to many, right? They're like just trying to survive, trying to figure things out, where that was your time to thrive.
yeah, I mean, maybe it was a great time to be getting into the, home delivery food
Yeah,
service,
yeah.
so
You forecasted perfectly.
yeah, it worked out well. Yeah.
How have you just built your community? I did order from you guys, Awatuki native right there. I remember during the pandemic, so thank you. But how did you start to formulate like your following, your people to seek you out? Obviously beyond now it's the norm of delivery or pickup or anything like that. But
I think we utilize social media a lot, and we still do. But when I first started, I mean, it was a free tool. I mean, and it's still a free tool unless you have, a social media team, which most people have these days, so it's not exactly free. Or if you're paying to, put ads or boost content, there's that. But, when I first started, I just started documenting everything. And actually some, validation for me when I first started was I would post these meal preps I was making on my personal Instagram page, and people would be like, oh my God, I'd buy those, you should sell them. And I'm like, should I? Okay, sure, So when I first started the business, I was documenting everything. I was sharing a lot of videos, a lot of stories. I was doing a lot of storytelling and kind of like keeping people updated on like the journey and like what's happening and like what we're doing and what we're trying to do and like what our goals and mission is. And I think that helped build community, and it was a slow, growth on that too, just like everything else. But really building that community and building connections. And I think social media is a great tool to start building trust with people. Building trust with people is so important, especially in the food business. I mean, in any business, you have to build trust, you have to build those connections, those relationships, and give people, a reason to keep coming back to you. And social media definitely played a big role in helping me, establish myself and build connections and build relationships and build trust. And, when you're the one running the account, you can actually like talk to these people, like your customers. You can actually, have a back and forth with them, and they can kind of feel like they know you and they're a part of the process. They're a part of the journey. They're watching something develop, and, they want they're rooting for you, and having people that want to root for you and see you succeed, and you're also delivering a product that makes their life easier. It just, I think that's been a big way that we've been able to, continue to grow and build community and, build relationships and connections and keep them going. So
I love that so much. That's a whole other panel, utilizing social media, and I'm sure we could talk for hours on that. But I always say, like, related to a weight loss journey, which you went through publicly and you're sharing, people don't want to see just the after. They want to see the before and like the duration of that journey, because they're rooting for you, they gain trust in you, they're checking the updates, and I love that's kind of how you've cultivated your own community with that. But that's enough with me. I have so many questions still for you guys, but you guys now can ask your own questions. I'm sure you're eager to hear from them or pick their brain on a certain topic. So this is your time. Go ahead.
Yes, this question is for Katie.
Okay.
What are three tenets that you mentioned core values of the company. What are three tenets that you actually go by that kind of drive your internal processes as you apply it to your work at Spinato?
All right. Personally or for the company?
Yeah, I think they
Yeah.
kind of are intertwined.
They are. I think it's why I've been successful, and we've meshed so well with the family and our working partnership. But I can say the boundaries that we set for ourselves, so for the company as well, mesh with me, right? So I believe in the core values, the four that I talked about earlier. We also have, right, define why do we exist. And it's more than just to make pizza, right? We go a little bit deeper of the family in mind, and all of our leadership team, right, fully believe in enhancing the lives of others as why we exist. And so we have these probably 4 questions that we outlined 10 years ago, so it wasn't even from the beginning. It was one of those, hey, let's take a look back at everything that went wrong, and how did we get through it, and how are we going to make that drive us to our future success. So that was a big one. So it's our core values, how we behave, why we exist, how will we succeed is a big one. And so we have 3 pillars there that we focus on. One is just being an employer of choice. So back to that employee focused. A lot of our decisions are based on that. What can we offer that other competitors maybe don't, that just make life easier for our employees. We have what's called the Spinato's experience, and that's how we differ ourselves from other companies. So if you talk to the family, Ken makes his rounds to the restaurants, so he'll be happy to share those stories. But the gist is, right, it's as if you invite somebody over to your home. How would you treat them? And so that is the core kind of purpose behind how we do all of our training, explain that to our employees so they can share that with the guests. And then what's the other one? What we do, I guess. So those are the 4 things or main questions that we answer and we outlined, and we should even have them in pocket size, right, that we print out for all of our employees, and we share that with them. So anytime something changes, obviously in the restaurant industry, there's lots of new policies, procedures, right? The why, even down to, we make them wear cut gloves, and I hear about it in the back of the house, right? Of, why do I have to put this on? But there's a rhyme and reason for it, and so we take everything through that plate. We call it a playbook, and so there's a rhyme and reason. Our employees know why they're being asked to do something, or why we've made a decision, or why we've grown and decided to open another location, or why we've turned down locations. So that's, I know that was a long-winded kind of a roundabout, but we do have this kind of playbook that we all believe in, and that's how we make our decisions. And it makes it fairly easy when those hard decisions like COVID or other possible recessions or whatever that's going on in the economy make it easier for us to make decisions on how to move forward.
That's good. Any other questions? Erin back there has the mic, so she can hand it over to you. Don't be shy. This is your moment. Tons of questions. Nothing? Everyone got it figured out? We're all going to thrive and survive together? Okay, one more. We got one.
Sasha, I was curious what you're doing now, because you can keep talking from a past experience, and you seem like the person who hops around, and I really admired that. So I was curious what that was like for you.
So I was telling Katie and Brent earlier that when I closed my restaurant, I had what I called a year of yes. So I closed it at 9 o'clock on a given morning, and by 12 o'clock that day I had my first opportunity to say yes. And I was feeling pretty defeated at this point, let me also say, because I had lost, my landlord had decided to go in a different direction with our lease and gave us about 6 weeks notice, which is pretty unheard of, especially for a business that had continued to pay their rent through the pandemic. But I didn't really know what that meant for me personally, and definitely professionally. My entire chefing experience had been through the lens of 24 Carats, and once it closed, I had no idea what I was. So that first opportunity came when I got a call from a Food Network producer and said, "Hey, do you want to be on the show?" And I said, "I want to be on the show. Do you want me on the show? I don't have a restaurant anymore." And they said, "I'll call you right back." And about 15 minutes later, I got a call and said, "We're in if you're in." And I said, "Yes." And I went there, and it was really affirming that I still belonged, that I could still be a chef without a restaurant. And then I started looking for more ways to be a chef without a restaurant. The next yes came from one of the nonprofits that I had been supporting for about 10 years prior. It's called the Blue Watermelon Project. We teach taste education to children in the K through 12 space. We have been doing this for years now. I think we started in 2016, and prior to that I was doing it independently, or doing a program like that independently. And they asked me if I would join, and I said yes. And it was incredibly fulfilling to suddenly be able to go and work with these young children who were so enthusiastic about all kinds of things. It also made me realize, and had always piqued, how important food security was within our communities. And in addition to like reaffirming my yes, it reaffirmed what my voice could do, right? I had the opportunity, people were still giving me the mic, and I had the opportunity to continue to talk about things that mattered to me. The next yes was when I got included on a phone call with the University of Arizona Medical School. They were starting a culinary medicine program and a culinary medicine initiative to teach doctors and community partners how to better utilize food to achieve the health goals of that particular person. So I said yes to that. I had the opportunity to start developing curriculum, start to teach doctors and work with nonprofit organizations all over the state. It meant we created things like prescriptive pantries for somebody who was diagnosed diabetic and perhaps was dependent on a food pantry for their meals. Now had the opportunity to go into a food pantry that specifically had the foods that they needed and be able to track that with their physician. Incredibly moving. We specifically worked with Indigenous members, and it gave me the opportunity to learn a lot about the culinary heritage of Arizonans and of Indigenous tribes nationwide, and be able to tie that into what we could do for their health if given the opportunity, and how to better support them in their own goals within the lens of their cultural needs. That was incredibly mind-opening, and it taught me that even as a chef without a restaurant, I can continue to learn. The last yes that I said was to a company that had supported me. The CEO used to come into the restaurant a lot and eat, and he had a need for a product development role. And I kept telling him, I'm not the person, I don't have full-time availability, I'm already working 2 jobs, I got a baby, and he just said, I'll take whatever time you have. And so now I have the opportunity to understand what scalable food systems look like. Very much, I could learn a lot from Brent. Like, what does it look like to start a meal? How does it look to be able to scale that? We now ship nationwide. We ship to Guam. So we're learning how to institutionalize some of these. And so I guess my point is that, yes, I'm doing a lot of strange things, but the core of all of that is I'm finding ways to continue to serve my community and continue to serve my own need to learn, to grow, and to cook. So.
I love that. I think it's such a testimony to everyone in here. You're an entrepreneur. Your idea might start and look like a building and a restaurant name, or like you said, it's more than pizza, and you can really, continue on this journey, but find new pathways of still honing in on your purpose and your calling and your passion behind it. And you just never know what it will turn into. It started off as a juicing business, and now she's obviously managing a lot more than just that at this point. But to be able to transform and pivot in this is so important. So I love that. Any other question before we conclude? And I'm sure they'll be sticking around too for questions if they have some time. Perfect. One more.
So I would be curious to know, what does the future look like for each of you? Like at the end of the day, right? We've kind of learned about what you've gone through and where you're at today. So big picture, where do you guys each want to go with what you do in this industry specifically?
So the future for me, I started going down the path of fresh food vending at the end of last year. We started with one fresh food vending machine, and it's sort of a new technology. You kind of see it in airports, but not a lot of people are out there doing it. We see a big gap in the market there. We see a lot of potential. Right now we have 4 fresh food vending machines going now. All of these are at high foot traffic gyms. And this is a machine where, it's basically a glass front merchandiser fridge with a tablet POS system on the front. It stays locked until you walk up and tap your card. It opens up, they can take whatever meals they want, and each meal is microchip tagged. So the machine knows exactly what's in stock, and knows exactly what leaves and what to charge the person for. So this application, like I said, we have 4 and they're doing well in high foot traffic gyms. We could see it working well at hospitals, at police stations, at schools, big business corporate cafeterias. And we've started to have some talks with some schools and some police departments, and now we're sort of navigating different avenues of where we can put these, just because, if you see a Mountain Dew machine and a Doritos machine, then you also see a fresh, healthy food machine, it's like, wow, look at that. That's something different. Like maybe I want an actual fresh, healthy meal instead of a bag of Cheetos and a Snickers, So I see a lot of potential there. So, in the short term, in the next couple of years here, we've got 4 machines now. I think we'll have 15 to 20 up and running. And for us, we see that as a great opportunity. So that's what we're going to do in the short term.
Ahead of the game once again. That's
What's
a good
that?
idea. That's a good idea. I said ahead of the game once again. It's coming.
Got to be creative.
For myself, professionally, I'm interested in learning more about medically tailored meals, understanding better how to support individuals, physicians, the future of what healthcare could look like, understanding better about what my community needs. But as I'm doing this, I'm also recognizing how privileged my chef experience is now. I have weekends off, guys. Anybody who's a chef, that's like unheard of, I spent holidays with my family, and this is something that whenever someone's like, hey, do you want to open a restaurant again? I'm like, ooh, I don't know, right? But I want to create these systems of stability for other chefs. Chefs are natural givers. We work in an industry where what you think of us, what you think of I still remember every time I'd send food out at 24 Carats, I would hold my breath because I would 100% expect people to spit it out. And I was just like grateful. Every single customer that ate my food, I was so in awe that they did, So for me, I want to create a system that is more fair and has better verticals for my chefing community. And what that looks like is to create programming that can link, say, physicians, hospitals, nonprofit organizations with the talents and ability to translate grand ideas of health into actionable and delicious plates that chefs uniquely share, and hopefully give more young people the opportunity to see what they could look like in the career that I might have.
Essentially, Sasha will be in the White House, I feel. That's happening somewhere down the line.
Maybe.
And the future for Spinatos.
Future for Spinatos. So this year we are moving our North Phoenix location to a bigger location. It's kind of our last one, kind of still standing in its original form. So we're finally updating that. And then next year, some exciting news for those on the west side will be our first location out in Glendale. So that's coming, and then obviously we'll probably take a little break. We usually like to take a break every couple of years. And then after that, it's really, we have a plan for every 18 months or so is opening a new location. So we're definitely on the big growth plan in the next few years.
Awesome. Any more questions? One more?
Okay, I have a question for Brent. I'm in the same industry, and you already touched on when you started your company, there was really not big investments. You buy the groceries and then you sell them, you make a little money, then you make a little more. At what point, I know you're doing the vending machines and you're doing other things, you got your own kitchen, which is amazing. At the start of it, the first 2 years, 3 years, not really having to take any financial risks, what's your process when you get a good idea or take a leap, get into your own space, buy a vending machine? Like in the meal prep industry, there's not much upfront. So what's the rough process for you to make a big financial decision and just go ahead and not freak out?
I just look at every decision in like a long-term kind of way. Like if it's going to benefit me long-term, like if I could see it working and sustaining for years and years to come, then for me it's a good investment. Like the kitchen, for instance, that 4,000 square foot kitchen, I mean, I'm on a 4-year deal. I don't own that property. But once we moved in, it needed a lot of work. So I probably put about $80,000 of my own money that, you know, was profit in the business that we had just kind of saved up, reinvested that into the space, because I see that as the next 4 years, and probably will extend after that and do another 4. So I see that as sort of a long-term, you know, I'm spending this money up front now, but it's really going to pay off in the future, especially because with a kitchen like that, we can rent time and space to other small food businesses, which really helps offset our overhead, because our overhead shot up dramatically when we went from a shared 1,100 square foot spot where we just rented the hours we needed versus our own 4,000 square foot kitchen. Our overhead went up dramatically. So in order to sort of offset that, now we can rent out time and space to other small food businesses. And also it excites me to give other small food businesses a chance to grow and a place to grow, and somewhere where they can take their concept and their idea and really do it at scale. So for me, that just seemed like a long-term investment, and we're still investing money in it. I mean, having a kitchen is a money pit. You know, you just keep having to throw money at it. But we need that kitchen to produce the food that we sell. So that's been an investment that I just think is going to pay off in the long term. And then with the vending machines, you know, it seemed like the timing was right. It seemed like a good idea. I wasn't sure if it would work, but I thought it probably would. And so far it's worked out great. And these are kind of like, it's like you're building a store, but you don't have to actually build a brick and mortar store. You just put your store inside of someone else's store, let them pay the electricity bill, and sell your food to where the bodies already are. Like, you build a store and you have to bring the people to the store. With these, you know, for a small, you know, footprint, you can put your machine and sell your meals where the people already are. So it seemed like a good investment for me up front. I mean, each machine is about $6,000, so like they're not cheap, but also if you compare $6,000 to $200,000 for building a store, it seemed like a good investment, and they're kind of scalable as far as you can order one, you can buy one, you can have them here in 2 weeks, and then really the hard part with that is just finding the locations and getting those accounts. So any investment that I make in the business, I just look at, is it going to benefit us long term? And then I just kind of go from there.
Any other questions? Are we good? One more? No? We're good? All right, well, thank you guys so much for your candid responses, realness. Hopefully you guys took in a lot. The hunger is very important to keep going here in this industry, and so hopefully you guys leave tonight full of optimism and inspired by their stories. Thank you guys again. Show them some love.